The day I handed my mother the eviction notice, she laughed. She actually laughed. Like I was still that skinny. 17-year-old girl sitting on the front porch with a garbage bag full of clothes, watching my bedroom light flip on for the stranger who was about to sleep in my bed. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I was the woman who now owned the deed to her house, the house next door, and every single property on Hargrove Lane. And I had learned, the hard way, the lonely way, the hungry way, that the people who count you out are often the ones who hand you your greatest motivation. So let me take you back. Let me take you all the way back to the night everything broke. Because that night, that was actually the night I was born. My name is Vivian Hargrove. And no, I didn't choose that last name by accident, but we'll get to that. I grew up in a mid-sized town in central Ohio, in a house that looked perfectly fine from the outside. Beige seating, a little flower bed my grandmother had planted before she passed. Wind chimes on the porch that sounded like something peaceful was happening inside. Nothing peaceful was happening inside. My mother, Nadine, was the kind of woman who could make you feel invisible and on display at the exact same time. She had a gift for it. She'd introduce me to her friends as her responsible one, and then, in the same breath, asked me to go fix everybody's plates, watch my little cousins, clean up after a party I wasn't even invited to participate in. I was 12 years old the first time I realized I wasn't a daughter in that house. I was staff. My stepfather, Clifton, had 2 biological kids from his first marriage, Amber and Tyler. And from the moment he moved in, the math in that house changed. Suddenly there wasn't enough of anything for me. Not enough space at the dinner table. Not enough hot water in the mornings. Not enough patience when I needed help with homework. But there was always enough for Amber's dance competitions. Always enough for Tyler's travel baseball league. And my mother, my own mother, just let it happen. No, that's not fair. She didn't let it happen. She participated in it. She told me once when I was 15 that I needed to learn to take up less space, that I was too sensitive, that life wasn't fair, and the sooner I accepted that, the better off I'd be. She was right about one thing. Life wasn't fair, but she was wrong about what that lesson was supposed to teach me. For most of my childhood, I cooked, I cleaned, I babysat, I ironed clothes that weren't mine for school picture days. I wasn't celebrated for. I maintained a 3.8 GPA while working 12 hours a week at a sandwich shop so I could buy my own school supplies, because those weren't budgeted for me either. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I just had to get to 18. I just had to graduate, and then I could breathe. I never made it to 18. Not in that house. 3 weeks after my 17th birthday, my grandmother, my father's mother, the only person in my life who made me feel like I mattered, passed away from a heart attack. I was devastated. I mean wrecked. I missed 2 days of school. I cried myself to sleep. I stopped eating for almost a week. And my mother's response? She sat me down at the kitchen table, folded her hands, and told me that they had decided to rent out my room. I stared at her. She said they had found a tenant, a woman named Georgette who worked nights at the hospital, and that the extra income would really help with Tyler's baseball fees. She said I could sleep on the pull-out sofa in the basement until I figured something out. She said it like it was reasonable. She said it like I should be grateful they were letting me stay at all. I asked her if she was serious. She told me not to make it dramatic. I want you to understand something. I wasn't some troubled kid. I wasn't using. I wasn't failing out. I wasn't giving them a hard time. I was a grieving 17-year-old honor student who had just lost the one person who called her on her birthday without being reminded, and my mother looked at me across that kitchen table and chose baseball fees. I packed my bag that same night, not because she told me to leave. She hadn't gone that far yet, but because I understood finally and completely that staying was going to cost me something I couldn't afford to lose. My belief that I deserved better. I called my school guidance counselor, Ms. Beverly Okafor, from a gas station payphone at 9 o'clock at night, and I told her everything. She stayed on the phone with me for 2 hours. She helped me find an emergency housing resource for youth through the county. And by the following week, I was in a supervised transitional housing program for teens. I was 17 years old, and I was more at home in a shared room with 4 strangers than I had ever been in my own house. Here's where the story changes. Here's where I changed. The transitional housing program connected me with a woman named Dr. Constance Whitfield. She was a retired real estate attorney who volunteered there on Wednesday evenings, helping young people understand financial literacy, credit, savings, taxes, contracts. Things most kids learn from their parents. Things I had never been taught. Dr. Whitfield saw something in me. She used to say I had the eyes of someone who was done being surprised by disappointment. And she meant it as a compliment, as strange as that sounds. She said the most dangerous investor in any room was someone who had nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. I started listening to her like she was giving me oxygen. I got my GED at 17. I enrolled in a community college at 18, studying business administration, while working full-time at a property management company, sweeping parking lots, turning over apartments, filing lease agreements. I was learning the language of ownership from the ground floor. Literally. By 21, I had my real estate license. By 23, I had saved enough, and with the help of a first-time buyer assistance program, Dr. Whitfield helped me apply to purchase a small duplex in a neighborhood 20 minutes from where I grew up. I rented out both units, lived frugally, reinvested every dollar of profit, and kept going. I didn't do it fast. I want to be clear about that, because I think too many stories skip the middle part. The boring part. The part where you're eating rice and beans and driving a car that sounds like it's filing a complaint every time you start it. I did it slowly, deliberately, and with my jaw set like I had something to prove. Because I did. I had everything to prove. Fast forward to the summer I turned 28. I had built a small but solid portfolio, 9 units, across 4 properties in central Ohio. I was making a comfortable living. I had a therapist, a savings account, and a group of friends who actually celebrated my birthday. Life was genuinely good. And then I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Tyler. My stepbrother Tyler, who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. He was cheerful at first, overly cheerful, the way people are when they want something. He told me he'd heard, through some mutual acquaintances, that I was doing well in real estate. He laughed a little, said he always knew I'd land on my feet. I stayed quiet. Then he told me why he was calling. Clifton had lost his job 18 months prior. My mother had drained most of their savings. They were significantly behind on the mortgage. Their house, the house on Hargrove Lane, my childhood home, the one with the beige siding, and the wind chimes and the room they had rented out while I was grieving, was heading toward foreclosure. He asked if maybe I knew any investors who might want to purchase the property. He said it carefully. The way you say something when you're hoping someone won't notice what you're actually asking. I told him I'd look into it. And I did. The house went to foreclosure auction 4 months later. I bought it. I want you to sit with that for a second. I bought the house where my bedroom light was turned on for a stranger while I stood on the sidewalk with a garbage bag. I bought it legally, at fair market value, through proper channels. Everything documented. Everything above board. I was now the owner of 412 Hargrove Lane. I also, quietly and over the following year, purchased 2 adjacent properties on the same street that had come available, which is how I came to rename my holding company. Hargrove Lane Properties, partially for the irony, and partially because that street, that house, that eviction had made me into exactly who I was. My mother and Clifton were renting from the bank when I acquired the property. They were given proper legal notice, as all tenants are during a change of ownership, and informed they could apply to remain as tenants under the new ownership at market rate. My mother called me. It was the first time she had called me in 6 years. I want to tell you that I was cold, that I had steeled myself, that I picked up the phone and felt nothing. That would be a lie. My hands shook. My voice shook. I sat in my car in a parking garage for 20 minutes before I answered because I needed to remember who I was before I heard her voice. Because her voice had a way of making me feel small again, even after everything. She wasn't cruel on that call. That almost made it harder. She was tired. She sounded old in a way I hadn't expected. She asked if there was any flexibility on the rent. She said things had been very difficult. She didn't apologize. Not exactly, but there was something underneath her words that I recognized. She knew what she had done. She knew what that night at the kitchen table had cost me. And maybe more importantly, she finally understood what it had built in me. I told her I would have my property manager send over the standard lease application, that if they qualified, they were welcome to stay, that I would not be offering any special arrangements. She said she understood, and then she said, and I will never forget this, she said, "You turned out all right, Vivian. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Not you deserved better. Just, you turned out all right." I said, "Yes, ma'am, I did." And I hung up. They did not qualify for the lease. Their credit had taken too many hits during the foreclosure process. They moved in with Amber, who lived 2 towns over. I heard through the grapevine that it's been a crowded, difficult arrangement. I renovated the house on Hargrove Lane completely. New kitchen, new floors. Opened up the back room, my old room, into a bright, airy space with big windows. I rented it to a young single mother named Tasha and her daughter, at a rate she could actually afford, with a lease that included protections I wished someone had given me. The first week she moved in, her daughter hung a little paper sun in that window. I drove by one evening and saw it from the street. And I cried, not because I was sad, but because I understood finally that the point was never the revenge. The point was never proving something to my mother or Tyler or Clifton. The point was that a little girl who was told she took up too much space had spent 13 years learning how to own the space entirely, and then used it to make room for someone who needed it. That's the thing about being underestimated. If you survive it, and I want to be clear, it is surviving. It takes everything you have, but if you survive it, it becomes the most thorough education you will ever receive. I still think about that 17-year-old girl on the porch. I think about her a lot, actually. I think about what she needed to hear and didn't. Think about how differently things might have gone if one adult had stepped in sooner. And I'm grateful, genuinely, completely grateful, for Ms. Okafor who stayed on the phone with me, and for Dr. Whitfield who taught me what money could do when you understood it. But I also think about something deeper, about the way we dismiss people, the way families sometimes treat the strong one as the one who doesn't need anything, the way strength, especially in young women, gets confused with not needing care. I was not strong because I didn't need anything. I was strong because I had learned, too early, that asking for things didn't work. That's not strength. That's survival. And survival is not the same as thriving. I am thriving now. I built that from scratch, in the dark, with no map and no safety net, and I would never wish that road on anyone. So here's what I want to leave you with today. The people who make no room for you at the table are not prophets. They are not seeing something true about your value. They are showing you something true about their limits. And their limits are not your ceiling. You are allowed to build something so big that the people who counted you out have to look up to see it. And my question for you, the one I want you to sit with, the one I want you to leave in the comments below, is this. If you had been in Vivian's shoes the moment your mother called and you heard her voice for the first time in years, would you have let them stay? Would you have shown grace? Or would you have held the line? There is no wrong answer. But I think your answer will tell you a lot about where you are in your own healing. I'll see you in the next story.